Thank you very much, Madam President. It's a great pleasure to rise to oppose the motion before us this evening. I have to admit, though, getting up here, having been attacked by Femi on that side for being part of the government that introduced Brexit, and then being attacked by my own side for being part of the cosy liberal establishment that questions our culture, I do wonder quite why I did make the trip up from London today. And indeed, you may be confused because I was thinking to myself as a Scot why I decided to put myself through an evening in Oxford debating a motion on English identity and nationhood. Because I am a Scot, despite being conservative. We do exist. We actually do exist still. I was born in Scotland, educated in Scotland, and I now have the immense privilege to represent the northeast of Scotland in the House of Commons. And I happen to believe I represent the best part of the best bit of the United Kingdom in our Houses of Parliament. But I am also a Brit, and proud to be so. And tonight I speak to you here in Oxford, in university, in one of the great educational establishments of the world, in this historic union, a globally recognised, international, but decidedly British institution. I'm not talking to a foreign centre of academic excellence and research, as international diverse as this audience quite clearly is this evening. I'm at home, in my country, speaking the common language we all share, with the values, courtesies we all recognise, in a manner befitting the democratic principles we know and defend. Our values, our language, and our democracy. That, for me, is the greatness of our country, of the United Kingdom, the British. A hodgepodge of backgrounds and identities with shared values. We can be proud Scots, Welsh, Northern Irish, English. We can be proud Londoners or Aberdonians, Muslims, Christians. We can be a mixture of all of the above. Proud of whatever constituent part of the United Kingdom you come from. Proud of its history, its heritage, and its flag. And still be British. That is the beauty of our brilliantly confused melting pot of a country. And so what happens in England, how people feel about England, how the English feel about England, its institutions, its symbols, its place in the world, matters. Not just to the English, but to all of us who share a home on these islands. Consequently, when people begin to ask whether the flag of St. George, the flag of England, has become a symbol of division, it is incumbent on all of us on these islands to sit up and take note. Because this speaks to me of a country that is not at peace with itself or its traditions. Now, I am clear in my mind, the English flag is not today a symbol of division. Now, that's not to say that it hasn't been in the past, nor might it become in the future. And that, my friends, is something that you must guard against, fight against. For the language of extremes, the language of politics of division, of nationalism, will seek to capture flags and symbols and claim them as their own. You only need to look at what happened north of the border during the referendum on Scottish independence in 2014 to see how the separatists attempted to take ownership of the Saltire, draping it over bridges, along roadsides, as if to demonstrate that those who were voting yes to breaking out of the United Kingdom had more of a claim to it than those proud Scots who saw a better future for Scotland as a part of the United Kingdom. This was new for Scotland. Many felt deeply uncomfortable, for unlike England, Scots of whatever political persuasion had always united behind the flag of St. Andrew, had never for one moment considered that it might be the preserve of a political faction or a certain view. Indeed, it always struck us as odd, up north of the border, that the English never had the same comfortable relationship or view of their flag, the red and white of St. George. When I was a child watching sports or national events, to see the English flag waved in support was a very, very rare thing indeed. As late as Italian 1990, when I was just 3, the predominant flag being waved or worn by supporters of Bobby Robson's boys who came almost a bit too close to winning, wasn't the red and white of St. George, it was the red, white and blue of the Union flag. In the 80s and the early 90s, whereas at Cardiff Arms or at Murrayfield or at Hampden, where the dragon or the Saltire were the only flags in evidence, at Twickenham or Wembley, the English flag was scarcely, if ever, seen. Even the colours of the England football team, not red and white, which is the flag, but red, white, and blue. There are, of course, deep-rooted and historical reasons for this, England being the largest and dominant partner, therefore most comfortable constituent part of the United Kingdom being one. But the reason that so few fans of English sporting teams carried the flag of their country back then was because it had, over a period of 30 or so years, become associated with a certain view, become associated with the National Front, with the far right. Italia 90 was only 9 years after the Brixham race riots and played out in the midst of serious debate about football, hooliganism that had more than a whiff of racism about it. But from that, yes, of course.
There is a reason why I had to paint on this T-shirt. It's because it is impossible to find an England flag, England T-shirt in Asda, supermarket, etc. Probably because of the reason. So the reason you're using about how England players didn't used to wear the flag because it became that symbol. That appears to be the case today because it's just difficult to find it now.
Well, I think if you have some patience, I'll explain why it's not the case today. And I hope I will convince you, Femi, to change your mind on whether or not it's a symbol of division and see you walking through the correct lobby this evening. Because I believe from that point, from the early 90s, things began to change. A concerted effort on the part of England to reclaim its flag, its symbols from the extremes began. As Scotland and Wales began forging a new identity through devolution, a movement to define Englishness as separate but as part of Britishness began. And slowly, very slowly, the crowds at Euro 96 or at the Six Nations or the Commonwealth Games or the Ashes, where in 2005 the England cricket team officially adopted Jerusalem as its anthem, you began to see the English flag wave with pride, not as a symbol of division or hate, but as the flag for all England, all the English, whatever your ethnic background, your religion, or your politics. England, the English at peace and at comfortable with itself and its place within the United Kingdom and the world. Its flag, not the preserve of some warped view of England, is or what it was, but reclaimed over decades as the uniting symbol of all who claim this land in which we stand here this evening as their home. Now, there are those on the right who I know want to return to the dark days when flying the flag of St. George was the preserve of individuals and groups who wish to sow division between the communities that make up this great country. Just as there are those on the left who wish to use the flags of England and the United Kingdom as symbols of imperial oppression that we should all be ashamed of in their warped view of British history. They are not, nor can they ever allowed to become either of those things, because this matters. As a Scot and a proud unionist, we need England to be confident, proud, and comfortable, because it is, if the English are, then the rest of our United Kingdom is too. Because the United Kingdom of Great Britain and Northern Ireland represents more than a corporate or business or economic arrangement between four proud, distinct, and separate nations. It is so much more than that. This country, my country, the United Kingdom, is about the familial ties across these islands. It's about our shared history and our shared values that together we stood up for over the last century and more. Scotland, Wales, Northern Ireland, and England, the country that abolished slavery, that fought with the Commonwealth and our allies to free the world from oppression and Nazism and communism, helped found the European Court of Human Rights, the United Nations and NATO, has stood as the beacon for the poor and the dispossessed of the world, and as a symbol of hope that good will forever overcome evil. The flag of St. George was the predominant part of the flag that every morning I stood up and saluted when I served in the Royal Navy, that flies over our ships and our military bases that people serve under today. It stands for freedom, for liberty, for strength, and for tolerance. It is something that unites, not divides. English identity, like Scottish, Welsh, Northern Irish identity, must never be treated as something to be feared, diminished, or weaponized. The flag of St. George is not a symbol of exclusion, but of belonging, not of division, but of unity, not of extremism, but of a confident, outward-looking England, secure in its place within our United Kingdom and its place in the world. To reject that is to misunderstand England, but most importantly, to misunderstand the greatness of Britain itself. And so this evening, as a proud Scot, a proud Brit, and a committed unionist, I affirm that English identity strengthens rather than threatens the United Kingdom we all share, and that England's flag, your flag, is one that binds together and does not drive apart. And I hope you all vote accordingly this evening. Thank you very much.